Hello everybody, it is October 2019, and if you are familiar with artists online, you probably have seen them doing something called Inktober, which is a practice where artists like to do an ink drawing for every day of the month of October. Now, I never had any sort of delusions that I was going to be able to do one of these every single day. I'm just too busy to do that. But I thought at first maybe I could bang out one per week. And of course, here we are, and it's October 15th, and I'm only releasing the first video. So maybe I'll be lucky if I get two out this month. I don't know, we'll see. But I decided to do one, and I figured I'd do Venom because he lends himself very well to a black and white ink drawing. I also like drawing him because he's just fun to draw. I love big toothy monster type stuff, so here we are. As you can see, I'm starting out with my typical blue line sketch and really just sort of doing rough, messy lines. Getting my shapes in, and I'm not trying to be exact about anything here. I'm just really just sort of figuring out what the drawing's going to be. And then the next step after the blue line is I grab a regular pencil, and now is the time where I start picking and choosing where my lines are going to be, and figuring out with a little bit more definition, how the drawing is going to form. So I'm kind of tracing over my blue lines, but at the same time, the blue lines were like very loose, very sketchy, and here I'm sort of making decisions, making the drawing tighter as I go along, making adjustments, things like that. Now, I'm not really trying to be exact, I'm just sort of kind of still being loose and free and just kind of playing around. There really wasn't too much of a plan going into this. It's not meant to be a finished professional drawing. This is just sort of a loose sketch for fun, so I'm not worried about being too tight or clean. I'm just sort of kind of being free and loose about it, which is a good deviation from my normal workflow. I usually have to work very tight and very clean with the professional work that I do. So every once in a while it's kind of fun to just sit down and do something where I can just sort of be kind of loose and sketch out something quickly, and if it's a little bit messy, that's okay. Here I'm trying to figure out the black areas. Planning out those shadow areas. And in some cases, I will actually fill in the shadow areas like you see there on the neck. And in other places, I'll just sort of outline the areas because I know I'm just going to fill them in with ink later. And now it's time to put the actual black ink lines down. In this case, I'm starting out with just a disposable micron marker, and I'll switch to India ink in a bit here. I like to kind of define the outlines of certain areas first. Sometimes with a fine liner like this, before I actually go in and fill in things with a brush. And now here we are with the actual ink brush. And I'm dipping the brush into a jar of India ink, and we're starting to paint in those black areas. Now, I typically, when I do an ink drawing, I use cardstock, bristle cardstock that's meant to for illustration work, and that has a nice smooth finish where the ink sits on top, and you can get a nice fine smooth line. and the ink just flows off the brush very nicely. I didn't have any of that here in the studio, and so I just used a piece of inkjet printer paper off of my printer. And I'm kind of struggling with it here because the inkjet printer is really soaking in the ink. It's just sucking it up off my brush, which is causing me to dip the brush into the ink jar over and over again, load up the brush with ink more than I normally would, and the ink is not flowing off the brush well at all. So here I've switched back to the Micron fine liner, kind of letting those black areas dry a little bit, trying not to get my hand into the ink because then I'll have little handprints all over the drawing. But again, we're just kind of defining the line work. And it's okay here because this is just a rough sketch. I'm not worried about making super clean lines. So kind of rough, sketchy lines lend themselves well to Venom anyway. Working out some of the shading there. Put some spittle. And here we're going to go back to the brush and start laying in more of those black areas. And the more blacks I lay down, the more it's starting to look more and more like Venom. When you're doing something like Venom, you kind of spend a lot of time on the mouth, because that's really the most interesting part. Alright, so I haven't been really happy with the quality of line I've been getting with the brush. That inkjet paper is really preventing me from getting a nice fine detail line with the brush, so I've switched to a crow quill here just to get some more detail work and a finer line. And now that the ink is dried, and I'm trying to get some of the pencil lines erased up here, kind of clean it up a little bit. We'll go in with some white paint, do a little touch-up, and cut into some of those blacks with some white lines. And paint into little saliva spit lines on the mouth. And now it's just kind of going back in and noodling in some details, cleaning up areas here and there. And now for some special effects, get some black ink splatter. And we'll also go in with a little bit some white paint splatter as well. And something like this, it's hard to control. So then you want to come in and with the white out, and you kind of want to pick and choose your areas, clean up some of the black splatter that you don't want, and then I'll also come in with some black ink and clean up some of the white areas as well. And now it's just about putting the finishing touches on. We are almost done. And there you have it. We're done. This was a lot of fun to do. I hope it was fun for you to watch. So thanks for tuning in, and I will catch you in the next one.